We know that it's very important for us to consume safe food. But what is safe food? What is safe food? Do you ever ask yourself before you're buying anything, what is safe food for me, you know? And that is why this morning we have David Kabanda to expound more on this particular subject, and he is the Executive Director of Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights. Welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me this morning.
We are glad to have you. Well, I know that SDG 2 is about ending hunger, achieving food security, and improve nutrition, and also promote sustainable agriculture. And I also want people who are watching us today not to confuse the two. There is food security and food safety. They're a bit different, but they complement each other. Food security, you're worried about having something to eat. Food safety, you're worried about if what you're eating is safe. So this morning we want to concentrate on food security. Is what you're consuming safe? And actually, I just told you already that sometimes you buy a full pack of chicken and you get home and you're cooking it. The taste is different. You do not understand it. But if you're a foodie like myself, you just eat. So first things first, tell us about the state of food safety in Uganda.
Thank you very much. We now know that the Uganda Bureau of Standards has warned the Ugandans that be very careful. 38% of the food we have currently in Uganda is contaminated. Of course, there is this scientific word, aflatoxins. Aflatoxins, it means that the food was not stored well, and it has molds and everything.
Yes.
But beyond that, we also know that food generally is contaminated with chemicals, with metal, with too much. So in Uganda, you are very safe if you are cautious about what you buy and what you eat.
So it is. Do you think Ugandans are actually cautious of that?
Incidentally, not.
Are you cautious of the food you're buying yourself, actually?
Yes, now maybe many people now call me the Lugezi food rights lawyer.
Yes.
And I'm very proud about it, because now I'm very cautious. Let me tell you, many people go to hotels and restaurants, and the first thing they'll ask for is chicken. They you know, I want to have eggs, I want to have, but bacon. Today, this morning, let me tell you one thing. The poultry business in Uganda, at least, thrives on antibiotics. It's very difficult for you to have, for example, a poultry business without using antibiotics, because the science is this: the chicken are in one place, and you want to pump them with feed such that they give you eggs, because the market demands so. So you find that they don't feed well, they don't have, you know, greens or everything, so they thrive on antibiotics. But many of these require that after applying antibiotics, you withdraw either for 14 days, 7 days, or 21 days. But who is that poultry farmer in Uganda that will withdraw or will, you know, take away the eggs or something? But realize that every time we have chicken in the market, we have eggs, nobody knows where, if they even came from. You just go to the supermarket, you buy a tray and take home, and you don't. If you came to my house right now, I don't have eggs. You don't have eggs? For a full month. We have not been eating, because we are not sure. I cannot just go to a supermarket and buy eggs, because I don't know where these eggs were coming from, and I don't know whether they did, you know, appropriate practice. All right. Now, what are some of the laws of food safety that we have in Uganda? We have a very big challenge, and this is where the gap is, and this is why we are coming in as Sefrot Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, coming back to Uganda as a government and ask them, wait a minute, many people are dying in Uganda prematurely, by the way. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen who are watching us today, you remember that time when you leave your family? We have young families, many of Ugandans are youth and everything. We have a future to have, but one of the things that is killing us is food.
Yes.
Many people claim that they have ulcers. In fact, you may find it's not even ulcers. These are stomach cancers. Many people are dying of cancers. Children are becoming obese. Children are developing cancers. The non-communicable diseases that we are now getting because of food are too many. So we want government now to come in. We appreciate government because they came up with guidelines on health diets, but that is not enough if we don't have a law. Let me tell you, when it comes to processed foods now and sugar sweetened beverages, you'll find that everyone is just buying, we are just consuming, and mark you, the producers actually know. Many of the producers, the food industry, they know what they are doing, and they know that those products we are consuming are potentially dangerous to our,
In fact, I think I read somewhere where they said that about 30,000 people die every year because of the NCDs, and I think it's very appalling. But as we continue to talk about the laws, who speaks for the consumer?
You see, it ought to be the government, it ought to be Uganda Communications Commission, it ought to be civil society, but you see there is a connection between food, science, culture, what we have grown up knowing, the trends, because some people may think that when you eat junk, then that style, you understand. So we need to continue speaking to ourselves, including me, that wait a minute, Mr. Kabanda, the way your body was made, the way your body was created, and the functionality of your body requires that you do certain things differently. Don't just go with the trend, don't just go with thinking that this is style, that when you eat the certain types of chicken and done differently, then you are this is style. Well,
Mr. David Kabanda, I feel really attacked, low-key. I am attacked because I think I'm guilty and I should be charged. But I know in 2019 you sued the government and UCC because of the marketing strategies that they were allowing to go on in regards to the food products that were affecting children. What inspired that, and how did that go?
In 2019, we went to court and challenged government on its failure to regulate marketing of unhealthy foods to children. You realize that between me and you, for us, we are old people now, we are adults, we must exercise reason when we make our choices. Yes. But when it comes to children, children are innocent, they don't know. You realize that without fear of contradiction, I'll speak about soda. You realize that when soda companies are advertising, there are some types when someone is riding a bike over a building or what, and children want to be like that.
Spider-Man, they see that extra
and
power.
Exactly.
Yes, I know.
And when they see soda, the kind of soda that is being advertised is what children will ask for.
Yes.
And 98% there is what they call kiddo influence or kid influence, that if a mother went to a supermarket with the child, 98% are chances that will go to the child. If a child asked for a commodity, the parent will buy.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So when a child, and have you ever been, for example, some of us who go to tax parks, and these hawkers who have maybe toys, and when they see you with the child, they'll come near such that the child cries, and you'll you'll buy. So the issue in Uganda is government has left food industry to advertise. They advertise in schools, they promote in schools, they advertise on TV, all the time is advertisement, and we are pushing too much information into the heads of these children. And between you and me, what you learn as a child is what you practice when you grow up. So we went to court and we want to ask government, can you please regulate the marketing, or can we have in the alternative, can you as government pay private media houses to promote healthy eating. You've seen, without again fear of contradiction, when they advertise Blue Band when children are running, that when you eat it, then you run faster. But it's not true.
And I know for a fact that there are some, advertisement is very strong, because once you watch that, you will actually think when you eat it, you'll be strong.
Definitely.
So I totally understand. And I also know that once again you're suing the government over food safety, over issues of food safety and rights. So what prompted this action? Is it based on what happened before in 2019, or there are new developments that you feel need to be, addressed?
See, what has been missing in Uganda is the use of legal tools. Not many lawyers will come into issues of food. You realize that many people think there's nothing to do with law and food. So when COVID-19 came, you realize that it was abrupt and many people cannot afford any foods, or they are no longer working, and government just made a decision that they are only going to cover Kampala and Wachiso. He said no, but the vulnerability index in Uganda does not only cover Kampala and Wachiso. We in fact have many vulnerable people outside Kampala and Wachiso. And now we went to court because many people were not getting food to eat. Many people were not, even the food that they were getting was unsafe. So we went to court and challenged the government, because government does not have national food reserves. And we want to speak to the powers that be, that if you have national food reserves, many of these issues of food security, food safety will be solved, because the issues of food prices, let me tell you, many people in Uganda right now are starving. And I don't know why media has recently no longer, you are no longer bringing, stories of people and food. But our interventions indicate that people are eating banana peelings. You a mother, you cannot afford food, you send your children on an open rubbish pit to pick banana peelings. I have eaten them myself because I wanted to know how it happens. I have gone to communities, and what we want to tell government and what we need to tell people, this is not fiction. People don't have food right now. We have tried, and I want to appeal to Ugandans, if you can afford food in your house, please check out a neighbor. People are dying. Children don't have food, and these statistics are not coming out well. Yes, Twaweza has come up with some statistics for which we are very grateful, and we want government that you shouldn't keep quiet. Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Health, Minister of Gender, children are in your, children are in your docket. And by the way, let me tell you, many of us seem not to understand the right to human capital development. If children don't eat when they are young, you are sure that when they grow up, they will not serve themselves and they will not serve the country.
It's very sad.
Because our cognitive capacities are not developed. They start when we're young, but and what impacts them is food, the food that we eat.
In fact, you just mentioned something very important. I know Twaweza's report said about 6% of the children between in the months of May and June were going a day without a meal, and it's appalling. 6% is a huge number, it's a huge number, and it's very, very, very saddening. But also we know that this case went against you and you decided to appeal. Is that correct?
Yes.
What prompted you to appeal? Still the same reasons for suing the government?
You see, we have a legal principle in law that when a case is in court, you don't discuss it, you don't discuss the merits. But let me tell you what happened. This judge, if you read the judgment, you wonder whether maybe she didn't understand us. This is why we say the judge add in law and fact. She concluded that it is okay for government not to have food reserves. And this is a constitutional requirement. It is not a moral obligation on government, it is a legal obligation. That was number one. But number two, the judge indicated that World Food Program will give food to Uganda. I said, but since when did state obligation, was given to another UN body? So we appealed because this is bad law she's creating when we get such a judgment, and we want court to set aside her judgment, but also order government that government must, this is not like we are a wish list, no. Government must establish national food reserves. Government must come up with laws to regulate food. Let me tell you, not everyone can cook. Not everyone can grow their food. We will continue to depend on other players. But when I walk into a restaurant or a hotel to eat, I must be able to eat safe. You understand? It shouldn't be, we have local government, for example. All people who start businesses will be required to have a license. And then they stop at that because they know they'll get money from it and everything. But do you go an extra mile if it concerns public health to make sure that this person who is cooking food, in the first place, do they even know that food is potentially dangerous to health? Even when it's cooked. Even when it's cooked.
Well, for those who are watching us here at Morning at NTV, please, we do ask you, how sure of your safety, how sure that the food that you're consuming is safe? Do you even think about it? Please remember our hashtag is Morning at NTV. Do send us your thoughts. Do you pay attention to the food you're buying, you're consuming? And coming back to you, Mr. David, finally, I would like to, as we wait maybe for the laws to be put in place, for the national reserves to be achieved, what can be done by us, all of us, including myself, what can be done to ensure that we have food safety? Because also, you mentioned that some people do not have what to eat. But you see, if you don't have what to eat and you get something that is just there, you must be like, survive. What do I do?
Let me put something in the stomach.
Let me just put something in the stomach. But what should we have at the back of our minds when we are buying food so that at least we consume food that is safe?
What I need to tell Ugandans is, the person who is selling food to you doesn't know you.
And probably do not care.
In most cases, they don't care about you. Let me tell you. Again, about eggs, poultry. We all love, maybe Uganda is now having a delicacy called a Rolex. You understand? We are promoting it. Actually, it's a very good thing. A well-done Rolex is very good food. But recently, we have discovered, and in my organization, we are doing some research and it is about to come out. We have hatcheries in Uganda. But when the science of hatching eggs, after 18 days with the eggs in the hatchery, if you got them out, there is a system called lighting. You can tell that this egg is going to hatch, this is not going to hatch. Now, these people who operate roadside Rolex making and food, they go and buy those eggs. And you Ugandans, you eat them.
As we eat.
I no longer eat them because now I know. And this is what I need to tell you. So you've asked me a question. What do we do?
What do we do?
This is not only for the consumer, but it is also for people who prepare food and the people who are selling food. My brother or sister who is selling food on the roadside or anywhere, please don't overuse oil. Yes. They even put other substances in the oil. You find chicken is very nice, looks very good, but you see they have put other substances and they know them. That is number one. Number two, if you are making a Rolex, please don't sell to me rotten eggs, because they have chemicals they use such that you'll never even smell that these eggs are rotten. But even you, a consumer, don't just buy. Recently, I think government now should come, as now they continue to ease the lockdown. Be very careful. I have gone to the supermarkets twice. Even water gets contaminated, it gets expired. You don't rush to buy and run away. Nobody is chasing you. It is your money. Read. If the expiry date, you know, find the if a product does not have expiry date, why are you taking it? Another issue is about nutrition labeling. If you are buying a drink or maybe flour and there is no nutrition content or labeling, why are you taking it? You leave it to them. You understand? Because the food industry, the people who are engineering food, do not like you. What they like from you is your money. And they do two things fundamental. They take away your money and eventually your life.
And your life. Well, thank you so much for joining us in our studios this very morning. I think it is a very crucial topic that we should have had even much earlier. And for you who's watching us, personally, I feel attacked. I will not deny that fact. And I think after this conversation, I'm going to be more careful with what I consume and maybe think twice about what I buy.
And maybe if you could allow me just a minute.
Yes.
Another critical component that we need to look at is chemicals. Have you heard about glyphosate? The weed killers and every in other countries these chemicals have been banned, but here in Uganda we continue importing, and yet there are alternatives. Mr. Government, don't keep quiet. Tomatoes, recently we had a report from Public Health, the College of Public Health in Makerere. 90% of the tomatoes in Kampala main markets are contaminated with chemicals. You've seen tomatoes with chemicals on them.
Yes.
Please don't buy them. Don't, because if you take them, the farmers in the gardens apply these chemicals, and when they bring the produce in the market, the vendors also apply more. So these are all things that we need to take care of and be able that we eat safe. All right.
Thank you so much for joining us once again. And of course, you at home, food affects everybody. Yes. Whether you're the president, whether you're a food vendor, or whether you're a farmer, food, we all eat. So it is very important for all of us to pay attention to the things we eat, and even you who's selling the products. If you can, I know you can, at least try to be considerate of what you're putting out. I know you want to make that extra profit, but think about the person you're selling this particular product to. Remember, it could be that person today, the next day it is you. Thank you all for joining us on this Kickstart, and we do hope that you've learned something. It is a morning and you're buying a snack, you're buying a Rolex, you're buying some samosas, you're buying some sodas, you're buying something, a quick snack in order to, to get your day started. Please be mindful, do not buy things that are not labeled. In fact, I didn't know that that wasn't a good thing. But if you are out there, do not buy something that is not labeled, because you need to know the facts and nutrition facts in that particular commodity. Thank you all for joining us.